All right, this is going to be a quick one. We are looking at idioms in our drama unit just because they are going to play a significant role in the drama that we take a look at. Also because dramas are heavy on dialogue and idioms are expressions that we use when we are talking to other people. So we will see them throughout the dramas that we look at. Um, Idioms are phrases or expressions. When you look at them and you look at the words, literally they have one meaning, and then idiomatically or figuratively they have another meaning. When we say idioms to people, we do not intend for them to take them literally. We intend for them to understand it as it's meant to be understood figuratively. In the What is Drama PowerPoint, we took a look at some dialogue. If you haven't looked at it yet, that's okay. You can go, if you're going in a different order, that's fine. But in that PowerPoint, there's an example of dialogue where one of the characters says that another character looks up to her. She doesn't literally mean that the character looks up at her. She means that she's admired and respected by that character. The thing that's important to keep in mind with idioms is that they are, if you are unfamiliar with them, they are difficult to understand because the literal meaning is often very different from the meaning that we intend figuratively when we use idioms. The other thing to keep in mind is that your understanding of an idiom can depend on like time and place. So idioms are very cultural. There are other languages and cultures that have idioms other than like English and America. And they don't necessarily translate easily into other languages. So some of the idioms that we use in the United States as English, if we are English speaking, are different from idioms that they would use, let's say, in like Italy. And because because they come from cultural context, they don't necessarily translate. So you wouldn't necessarily translate an English American idiom into Italian so that the Italian person could understand it. They wouldn't. And you wouldn't necessarily translate an Italian idiom into English so that somebody who's in the United States speaking English would understand it. It wouldn't necessarily work that way. You might tell it to that person in your language or in the language that the idiom is native to, and then just explain to them what it means. But you wouldn't necessarily translate it. Idioms, the meaning of idioms can also depend on time. So, like my parents or grandparents or your parents or grandparents might use idioms that we don't necessarily use anymore. All right, like the bee's knees. We don't necessarily use that anymore. It doesn't necessarily have meaning for us. But for them, it would. That's just something to keep in mind. So we have some idioms here. Take a look at some of them that are listed. How many of them do you know? How many of them are you familiar with? And could you communicate what they meant to somebody? Are there any that are not here that you know? And think about the context that they would be used in, right? Penny for your thoughts, actions speak louder than words, add insult to injury, takes two to tango, jump on the bandwagon, kill two birds with one stone. You're not literally doing any of those things. They have a different meaning, right? If you kill two birds with one stone, it means that you can, with one thing that you took care of something. You took care of more than one thing with one action, and you're like, oh, cool, I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. If you heard something through the grapevine, you're not literally putting your ear to a grapevine to listen, right? It means that you, like, gossip was passed along, that word got around, and you've heard whispers of things. So again, if we're looking at the literal versus the idiomatic or figurative meaning, right? To say something is a piece of cake doesn't mean it's literally a piece of delicious cake. It means that it's easy. You don't have to like worry about it. You can get it done quickly, get it done easily. Um, and again, like if we look at the origin or the etymology of it, it is very much related to the culture that we are in. So that a piece of cake wouldn't necessarily translate to another language or another culture.